the entire remainder of this season. What started as a competitive game between two Western rivals escalated into something that no one in that stadium, no one in that dugout, and no one watching from home was prepared to witness. And at the center of it all were two of the most recognizable names in baseball right now, Shohei Ohtani and Julio Rodríguez. What happened on that field tonight was not a simple collision. It was not a misunderstanding between two players competing hard. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the situation, the tension between these two had been building for several days before tonight's game even began. And when it finally exploded in the sixth inning at Dodger Stadium, it did so in a way that left players frozen, fans stunned, and both dugouts completely emptied onto the field. The game had started with normal enough energy. The Dodgers were coming off a strong series and the atmosphere inside Dodger Stadium carried that familiar confidence. The crowd was loud. The lineup was stacked. And Shohei Ohtani, as he has been for most of this season, was at the center of everything the Dodgers were doing offensively. Julio Rodríguez, on the other hand, came into this game carrying something else entirely. According to those close to the Mariners clubhouse, Rodríguez had been unusually quiet in the days leading up to this series. Not the focused, locked-in quiet that players sometimes enter before big games. This was a different kind of silence. The kind that makes teammates glance at each other without saying anything. The kind that coaching staff notices but doesn't address directly, hoping it resolves itself before it becomes something bigger. It did not resolve itself. The first 5 innings passed without major incident. Both teams traded runs. The crowd stayed engaged. And on the surface, everything appeared to be a normal, competitive baseball game between two teams that genuinely dislike losing to each other. But according to multiple sources present in both dugouts, there were signs as early as the 3rd inning that something was not right. Rodríguez had been watching Ohtani closely. Not the way a competitor watches an opponent to study tendencies or pick up timing. Multiple eyewitnesses described it as something more personal. More intense. And when Ohtani came to the plate in the 4th inning and worked a lengthy at-bat before drawing a walk, the reaction from Rodríguez in the Mariners dugout reportedly drew the attention of several Seattle coaches. No one said anything at that point. But several people noticed. Then came the 6th inning. And everything changed. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of what transpired, the sequence of events began when Ohtani reached first base following a sharp single into right field. The Dodger Stadium crowd rose to its feet immediately. Ohtani, as he always does, took his lead off first base calmly, reading the pitcher, studying the infield, doing exactly what the Dodgers coaching staff expects of him in every situation. What happened next, according to those present, was not anticipated by anyone on the field. Julio Rodríguez, playing his position in the outfield, began moving toward the infield in a manner that immediately struck several players as unusual. According to multiple sources, there was a brief verbal exchange that occurred between Rodríguez and Ohtani that escalated with extraordinary speed. Within seconds, the situation had moved beyond words. Rodríguez moved toward Ohtani with clear aggression, and what followed was described by multiple eyewitnesses as a direct physical confrontation on the field. Players from both dugouts emptied instantly. Coaches sprinted from both sides. And for several chaotic seconds, Dodger Stadium descended into the kind of disorder that baseball has not witnessed at this level in recent memory. The crowd noise shifted immediately from excitement to something closer to shock. Thousands of people in that stadium fell into a confused, disbelieving silence before the volume returned, louder and more unsettled than before. According to those present in the immediate aftermath, the scene inside the field was one of the most intense atmospheres many veteran players had experienced in years. Not a single person who witnessed it described it as a routine baseball altercation. This was not two players bumping chests after a hard slide. This was not the kind of brief flare-up that gets broken up in seconds and forgotten by the 7th inning. Multiple sources described the moment as one that fundamentally changed the energy of the entire stadium. Players who had been on the field said afterward that the look on both players' faces during the confrontation was unlike anything they had seen in a regular season game. There was no performance in it. No playing to the crowd. What was visible on that field, according to those closest to it, was something genuinely raw. Umpires moved quickly. Teammates from both sides stepped in. And the coaches who reached the scene first were reportedly focused not just on separating the players but on preventing the situation from escalating further among the other players who had flooded onto the field. Because once both dugouts empty, anything can happen. And tonight, for several very tense seconds, it appeared as though anything might. The immediate reaction from Dodgers management, according to multiple sources, was one of controlled fury. Dave Roberts, who has managed this roster through difficult moments before, was described by those present as visibly shaken by what had unfolded, not panicked, but carrying the kind of tightly controlled anger that signals something serious is being processed internally. Roberts did not speak to the media immediately. According to those close to the situation, he spent the first several minutes after the incident behind closed doors with his coaching staff. No one else was in the room. And when he eventually emerged, his demeanor had shifted into something much more measured and deliberate. The Mariners' dugout, according to multiple sources, was a completely different atmosphere. There was no sense of calm there. Players were still visibly agitated. Coaches were moving from player to player. And Julio Rodríguez, according to those present, sat alone in one corner of the dugout for several minutes without speaking to anyone. Nobody approached him. Nobody asked him anything. The space around him was left empty, and everyone in that dugout understood why. In the hours following the incident, information began to emerge that added an entirely different layer to what had occurred on the field. According to multiple sources with knowledge of both organizations, the tension between Rodríguez and Ohtani was not born from tonight's game alone. There had reportedly been a previous incident, unrelated to tonight's game, that had left a lasting impression on Rodríguez and had never been fully addressed between the two players. The details of that earlier incident remain unclear. But according to those familiar with the situation, Rodríguez had been carrying something with him into this series that went beyond normal competitive intensity. And when the moment arrived tonight in the sixth inning, when the circumstances aligned in a way that broke through whatever restraint had been holding things in place, what came out was the full weight of everything that had been building. This is not how Julio Rodríguez is typically described by those who know him. The Mariners outfielder has built his reputation over the past several seasons as one of the most electric, enthusiastic players in the game. His energy in the clubhouse is consistently described as one of the brightest forces on the Seattle roster. He plays with visible joy. He celebrates his teammates. He is the kind of player that organizations build cultures around. Which is precisely why tonight's events were so jarring to everyone who witnessed them. This was not the Julio Rodríguez that baseball has come to know. And that gap, between the player everyone recognizes and the player who walked toward Shohei Ohtani on that field tonight, is what has left so many people inside the game genuinely unsettled. As for Ohtani, multiple sources described his demeanor following the incident as remarkably composed given the circumstances. This, too, was noted by those present. Because what was visible on Ohtani's face in the immediate aftermath, according to eyewitnesses, was not anger. It was not relief. It was something much closer to a calm and focused resolve that several veteran players described as almost unsettling in its steadiness. Ohtani did not seek out reporters after the game. He did not make statements. He moved through the post-game environment in exactly the manner you would expect from a player who has decided that the only thing worth responding to is what happens on the field. But those close to the Dodgers organization were very clear about one thing. What happened tonight did not go unnoticed internally. The Dodgers are a team that operates with a specific culture and a specific set of standards. And when something disrupts that culture, regardless of where it originates, the organization responds. Multiple sources confirm that conversations are already taking place at the organizational level regarding the fallout from tonight's incident. Both MLB and the individual organizations will be reviewing what occurred. Suspensions are being discussed. And the broader question of what this means for the remainder of this series, and this season, is one that neither team's front office is treating lightly. Because at its core, what happened tonight at Dodger Stadium goes beyond one confrontation between two players. It revealed something about pressure. About what happens when competitive intensity crosses a line that everyone in the game understands but rarely talks about directly. And it raised serious questions about how both organizations managed the aftermath of a moment that was captured by every camera in that stadium and seen by everyone watching. Baseball has a way of moving forward. The schedule continues. The games come back around. And in a week, perhaps even in a few days, tonight will have become one chapter in a longer story that this season is still writing. But for everyone inside Dodger Stadium tonight, every player, every coach, every person who was close enough to see what actually happened in that sixth inning, this is not something that gets filed away easily. Some